Agnes Martin takes a key concept in art history and she twists it and she redefines it for us. This work is a form of meditation, an object that represents time and process, and all of those things combined are a reflection, quite simply, of life. This is Agnes Martin's Greystone 2 from 1961. And when you think about 1961 as a year, it was a loud, bold moment in the art world. You think of Andy Warhol's Superman, Roy Lichtenstein's Look Mickey, or you think about, in Europe, Lucio Fontana, slashing into canvases. In the face of all this really loud, bold art, Agnes Martin creates something that is defiantly quiet, defiantly calm in a sense. And she's really going back and adopting the grid, which the Bauhaus movement had brought into fine art. And she takes this grid, which is something that on one hand is so structured, and she turns it into something that is really uniquely her own. She makes it something that is soft, something that is fragile. The Emily Fisher Landau collection is a web. From any one place within that web, you can draw lines and threads to almost every single other work. And the most, I think, obvious line that you're going to draw is to the work of Piet Mondrian. And there's a similarity there, of course, because of the grid and the geometry and the structure of these canvases, but also because both of these artists, their interests were ultimately rooted in life, and specifically nature. Agnes Martin talks about, with her early grids, kind of getting to that point because she's thinking about the forest, she's thinking about the trees. And trees and flowers were something that featured first in Mondrian's work until he distilled those colors and forms into the more austere abstractions that we know today. Ellsworth Kelly's work is really another point on this web, which makes sense partly because the two artists were sharing studio space at the time down in Coenties Slip, which had beautiful views over the East River. So you can imagine that both artists were really inspired by their watery location. And like Agnes Martin, Ellsworth Kelly was creating these simplified, sinuous abstraction using simple colors and simple forms. Looking at Martin's Greystone 2, for me, is really the feeling of looking at the surface of a lake. There's something incredibly contemplative about it. I imagine that Martin wanted to create this effect, which she does so successfully, of almost looking at like grains of sand falling out of an hourglass. There's a real sense of process and time. Greystone 2 is further distinguished because Martin's using gold leaf in it. And gold leaf as a material is celebrated as one that's iconic within art history, relating back to Italian pre-Renaissance paintings, 16th century Japanese screens, and more recently, the spectacular canvases of Gustav Klimt. It's a material that in Martin's hands becomes something wholly different. It's a material that I think she chose because it really communicates joy, but there is a boldness to gold as a material. It's the material of icons in a way, which probably Emily related to when she was looking at this painting, because ultimately her collection is one of iconic pieces.